Today, you are going to get a front row seat to the ultimate 2023 Rugby World Cup preview. I'll be joined by rugby writer and author Mike Greenaway as we dissect pools A, B, C and D, as well as make predictions for the quarterfinals, semi-finals and final. Let's get started. Now, one of the books that Mike has authored is this one over here, Captain in the Cauldron, John Smith's autobiography. And I can tell you, it is one of the top 5 sports biographies that I have read. And he also has a new book out. It's called The Fireside Springbok. In addition to that, Mike and I met for the first time about 15 or 16 years ago when he was a regular contributor on my radio show. His was a very important voice indeed. Mike, welcome to Front Row Rugby.
Thanks, Peter. I always wanted to be on the front row, but when I was a club rugby player, I was in the back, so it's good to be here.
Sounds good to me. Mike, let's get started at the very beginning. Friday night, Pool A, the host nation up against the All Blacks, 3 times world champions. How do you see it going?
I think it's going with the home team. I've been in that Stade de France, fortunately for a number of test matches, and also the one in 2007. I was at that opening game as well. You know, a lot of people are saying that France are going to maybe crumble under the weight of expectation at home, possibly later in the tournament. But Friday night, the atmosphere there is going to be absolutely amazing. I mean, there's 80,000 plus Frenchmen, and they're not quiet. They really get stuck in. So I think that France will get over the line here. I'm pretty sure about that.
I tend to agree. Now, the other team in this pool that could potentially make a dent is Italy. Just in the last year or so, they really have shown some serious improvements, even though for the best part of the last 20 years, they really have struggled. Can you see Italy causing any trouble?
I think they'll finish third. They're a pretty solid team. Of course, they had that great win over Wales. They're actually a good side at the moment. Their Kiwi coach, Kieran Crowley, has done a brilliant job. I think this is the best Italy have been for a very long time. But honestly, the gulf between them, New Zealand and France, I can't see them finishing any higher than third.
Let's talk a little bit about Uruguay. 4 years ago, they famously defeated Fiji, one of the great upsets in the history of the Rugby World Cup. They are an improving side. Can they potentially cause an upset against Italy?
Look, Uruguay, they're not a bad World Cup team. When they do get into World Cups, they generally play quite well. They're coming into this tournament. They've had some quite nice wins. I think they beat Georgia. They've beaten a few minnow sides, but I think they will beat Namibia, and that'll be their bundle. This World Cup, I think, is going to be the most competitive that we've ever had. Those days of New Zealand beating Japan 150-0 and Australia beating Namibia 155-0 or something. I think those days are over, and that's great because rugby's growing. But still, the gulf between the top teams and the bottom teams is still there. It's just the margins aren't going to be quite as heavy.
Mike, you mentioned Namibia there. They are winless in 6 previous Rugby World Cup tournaments. What are the chances that they can bring an end to that winless streak?
Obviously Uruguay's their game, where they'll empty the tank. But I struggle to see them getting a win. It's just going to be. I mean, Alistair Coetzee is there. He's doing his best, but I look at some of the players they've got that they're saying are their star players, or players that are battling to make Currie Cup teams in South Africa. So they will target Uruguay. And that's the beauty of the World Cup. Every single game has its own unique character. So Uruguay versus Namibia, that'll be like their World Cup final. So I love watching every single game because each one has its own little nuances. And yes, Namibia are going to try and keep the score down against New Zealand. But when they play someone that's more, of their ilk, it's going to be a lacquer game. So yeah, every game is going to be good.
Okay, just to confirm then, your prediction, France to go through as Pool A winners with New Zealand as the runners-up.
I see it as France will win it, New Zealand 2, Italy 3, and then Uruguay and Namibia toss of a coin.
Yeah, I've got it that way as well. France in first place, New Zealand as the runners-up. Let's move on then to Pool B, Mike, the pool of death. Now, I must be honest with you, about 2 weeks ago, I thought that the Springboks might actually finish second in this one. However, after that performance at Twickenham against the All Blacks, I must admit I am cock-a-hoop, and I'm now thinking the Boks are going to win this pool with Ireland in second place. What do you think?
I just want to just say something while I've got the opportunity talking about South Africa. A lot of people have forgotten that this World Cup was actually due to be kicking off in South Africa. Well, didn't get as far as kicking off, but a couple of nefarious cloak and dagger moves in a boardroom in a London hotel, I think it was 6 years ago. This World Cup was coming to South Africa. Remember, we in the bidding process, South Africa won comfortably. And then before the second round of voting, France got to work, and it's a fact that they have been found out for some skullduggery, and something happened, and then South Africa lost heavily the next round, and it went to France. So, I mean, this World Cup kind of should have been in South Africa, but now it is in France, and I just think the poetic justice of South Africa having been shafted in hosting the World Cup now goes to France and wins a World Cup final in Paris, because that's what I think is going to happen. Is we're going to play France in the final and we're going to win it. But that was just something I wanted to get off my chest. So how are South Africa placed? Man, I'm traditionally a little bit of a pessimist when it comes to the Springboks. I'm always thinking, what about this? What about that? But I think they are so well placed. The planning that's gone into it, and a lot of us were scratching our heads with some of Jacques Nienaber and Rassie's selections. I mean, even going back to last year when they played a second string team against Wales and Bloemfontein, and we lost to Wales for the first time in history. And they've been doing all this planning, this depth growing for 18 months now, and it's all been with an eye on the big prize. And the big prize now is about 6 weeks away. I'm talking about the final. World Cups are all about how you peak. The New Zealand are the absolute past masters in peaking between World Cups. I mean, they should have had a far bigger return, in terms of World Cup victories, given how they've dominated rugby over the last 30 years. But they haven't. That's because they get to World Cups and they possibly pass their best. But the Boks, I'm convinced, the trajectory they're on is a perfect one. So I really have a good feeling about South Africa.
I like what you've said there about poetic justice. In fact, I can actually remember being in Plettenberg Bay on holiday at the time, the day before the announcement, and being quite excited about South Africa hosting the World Cup again, only to, of course, be disappointed the following day and actually have my holiday spoiled. But Mike, if we talk about our opponents on Sunday, that would be Scotland. They, in a way, similar to Italy, have become a very, very good side. Certainly better than the Italians in the last year or two. Again, having struggled for the best part of the last decade, even 2 decades really. How much trouble could Scotland cause South Africa?
Definitely. This is probably the best Scotland team I've seen in 10 years, even longer. Their coach, Gregor Townsend, is a really good coach. He's been there now for a long time. I think it's about 6 or 7 years, possibly even more. And this team is peaking as well. They got a really good scrum coach in Peter de Villiers, the South African, who's coached at cheapest, I think, almost every top tier country. And they will give us problems, and we have to take them very seriously. And there's zero chance of us not doing that, not with Rassie and Jacques. And Italy also, Scotland are also one of the fittest teams. They are a team that never, ever goes away. If you think you've got them beaten on the scoreboard and you take your foot off the gas, they come back in the last 10, 15 minutes. They do it all the time. They nearly beat France that way in a warm-up game 2 weeks ago. So Scotland are a good side. but a correctly focused Springbok team playing for 80 minutes will put them away. Now, a lot of people talk about, or they've got these rugged South Africans in their team. They've got Pierre Nel and Pierre Skuman, and with respect, would those guys make the Springbok team? Would they even make the Springbok bench? And that's probably being a little bit disrespectful, but I think man for man, we've got this one. Okay, they have Druan van der Merwe, but he's got to get the ball. Hey? He scored something like 18 tries in his 30 test matches. So he's an incredible strike force. But like I say, he's got to get the ball first. And I just think our forwards should ensure he doesn't get too much ball.
By the way, guys, I have set up a Superbru predictor pool. If you'd like to join, you can do so by clicking on the link on your screen, or I'll put it in the description area for you. So I'm expecting South Africa to win this pool, with Ireland going through in second, with Scotland narrowly finishing behind us in third place. Now, Mike, Ireland are the world's #1 ranked team. I'd like a word on them from you.
This is the beauty of a World Cup. You just don't know. I do think that we will beat them. I'm wondering if Ireland are one of those teams that might have peaked maybe a season too soon. Maybe they played their best rugby when they won the series in New Zealand. I'm hoping so from a South African point of view. We played them in Dublin and almost beat them, and we were kind of at three-quarter strength, and we could have won that game. Johnny Sexton, I believe, will not be there, and he's massive for them. That is significant because he controls the game so beautifully. Look, for anyone to say with conviction who's going to win that game, South Africa, Ireland, it's really difficult to say. I do think, though, that again, I mentioned our forwards and possibly a 7-forward bench. Just that sustained pressure might be too much for Ireland, because they're a team that likes to play with a lot of rhythm. They move that ball from side to side. They keep possession. But I think we've got the forwards to disrupt that kind of game of theirs. So I put a gun to my head, and I'll say South Africa will get over the line, but only just.
Yeah, I'm in agreement there. I also think something like 3 points, 4 points, something along those lines. But Mike, let's talk a little bit about Tonga now, because World Rugby has relaxed the eligibility rules. And what it means is that players who, as it turns out, predominantly coming from Tonga, Fiji and Samoa, and turned out for the All Blacks and the Wallabies, as it turns out mostly, are now able to go back and play for their home countries. And it seems as if the Tongans are the team that will be the biggest beneficiaries of this rule change. What can we expect from them?
Yeah, it's great. I think it's a good move by World Rugby. And I'll tell you something interesting. I just saw a stat before we started here. The Pacific Island teams, Tonga, Fiji, Samoa, sort of per capita, they have a greater percentage of rugby players than anyone else at the World Cup. Something like 10% of the Fijian population plays rugby. And okay, that sounds like a lot, but then their populations are tiny. There might be 900,000, or I stand to correction here. But so for them to get some of their sort of veteran players back that are now finished playing for New Zealand, it's brilliant. And Tonga have benefited. And it's just such a pity, though, that don't hold me to naming them now, but they've got about 3 or 4 of those guys coming back from New Zealand and Australia who are actually injured. And so they've got quite a bad injury toll. Israel Folau is one of those guys. But still, Tonga will be much better. I think of the 3 island teams, though, that they are possibly the weaker. I think Fiji and Samoa are really looking good. But Tonga will give us a headache for sure. I'll never forget that game in 2007, South Africa versus Tonga, and Jake White picked sort of a second string Bok team with the heavyweights on the bench, And with 10 minutes to go, Tonga were winning that game. And then he put the John Smiths and so on the bench. And even then, there was a bounce of the ball right at the end of the game that was between Tonga winning and not winning. So they will come for us for sure. And but we should close that one out quite easily.
And I think it's fair to say Romania will finish bottom of the pool, right?
Yeah, I would say, yeah.
So you and I are in agreement then, Mike? South Africa to go through in first place with Ireland in second?
Correct, yep. That's my forecast.
Let's move on to Pool C, and I know that we just said that Pool B is the pool of death, but if you look at Pool C, there could be a strong argument here for that, because you've got the Wallabies, who haven't won a match this whole year, you've got Wales, who are in disarray, then you've got Fiji, who are much improved, and let's not forget, they pulled off a famous win over England at Twickenham just the other day, and Georgia are also there, a team that are actually quite decent in their own right. What do you think is going to happen here?
100%. This is the underrated pool of death. And that's because the teams are much of a muchness. Australia and Wales are really struggling. Just on this point, on this particular group, everyone's spoken about how unfortunate it is that you have one half of the draw which is really, really tough, and one half of the draw where it seems like there's a highway to the final or to the semis. And I just want to say, a lot of people have asked me, why has it worked out that way? Why have World Rugby done the draw in such a way? And, they really, they made a massive blunder. The reason why the draw is so cockeyed is because they had the draw like 1,000 days ago, almost exactly, to the kickoff on Friday. They made the draw in 2020 based on the world rankings at that time. Now, at that time, Wales and Australia and England were in the top 5. So when they make the draw for the World Cup, they try and spread the top-ranked teams in the world across the top of the 4 pools. But now, like a week before the World Cup, the top 10 rankings in the world are vastly different to how they were when World Rugby made the draw. So that is why you've got the one half of the draw looks fairly easy, and one half of the draw is really tough. It's because they did the draw too early. Anyway, be that as it may, you now got Wales and Australia in a pool with up-and-coming teams, like you say, Georgia and Fiji. They're good sides. They really are improving greatly. My one thing about this pool, though, and also Pool D, where there are sort of not as many heavyweight teams, and this is a little bit of a worry for me, is that teams like Australia and England and possibly Wales too, they have a little bit more room in which to kind of find their mojo, because they've come into the World Cup very cold, and maybe just settle on something that works for them, and then build a little bit of momentum, and still qualify. I think Australia fall heavily into that category. I know they lost 5 in a row under Eddie, but I do think they are getting better. I mean, they almost beat New Zealand in Dunedin in a warm-up game. So Australia, I think, will see this pool, and I know there are some tough teams, but they can see this as an opportunity to really grow their game and settle down. By the time they get to the semi-finals, which they should get to, they could have a lot of ducks in a row. Same goes for Wales. This I look at those Australia and Wales. This is can the old dogs still teach new tricks? Eddie Jones and Warren Gatland. So it's a good test of their coaching to see if they can get their teams up to scratch by the time it gets to the knockouts, because I do think those two will go through.
Do you really know your rugby? Do you always get your predictions right? Why not make some money then? Open an account right now with Tic Tac Bets and get up to 2,000 Rand and 20 spins with your first deposit. The link is appearing on your screen, and I'll also put it in the description area. Please note that this is an affiliate link and I will make a little commission on it. Winners know when to stop. National Responsible Gambling Program. Toll-free helpline 0800 006 008. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Alright Mike, so you've got it as Australia-Wales, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to differ a little bit with you. I think the Wallabies will also top the pool, but I'm going to go with a repeat of 2007. I'm tipping Fiji to beat Wales and go through to the quarterfinals as well. But you've got it as Australia-Wales, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. And I don't say it with a massive amount of conviction, because I do think Fiji are really up for this tournament. They are playing well. They have got a good side. They're well coached. So it's not with a massive degree of authority that I'm saying that Fiji won't make it. And I hope they do.
On to Pool D now, Mike, and I found it very, very interesting in the last few days, reading a lot of British press and getting the sense that the English seem to think that they might be the underdogs against Argentina. They're speaking as if it's a match in which they may struggle. Now, I grant you that I watch more Southern Hemisphere rugby than Northern Hemisphere rugby, but having watched the Pumas in the last 2 years or so, I don't think there's any doubt whatsoever that Argentina are the favourites for this match. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I think England are they're too far gone. You know, they're just playing too badly. There's not much going on there, and I don't see how they can get it right. You know, in a World Cup now. You know, having said that, I don't know if you recall 2007. England were the defending champions, and they went into the World Cup. I think the coach was Brian Ashton, and they were playing in a certain way, and they were terrible. I remember the Box beat them convincingly. In England, then the players had a meeting, and they decided they were going to change the way they played. They were in similar disarray to how they are right now. And then they just something clicked, and they obviously made it to that final where South Africa beat them. Can history repeat itself? I don't think this time. I think the competition is stronger. You know, I think those Red Roses have just wilted a little bit too much. I don't think there's any amount of watering is going to get those roses to blossom again. And I do think that Argentina will beat them. Argentina are a good World Cup team. They've got a good history in World Cups. They seem to know how to play the tournament, and they've got a good record. And I think they've got the team, the players. Not so long ago, they beat New Zealand for the first time. So Argentina will top this pool, in my opinion, and England, almost by default in a fairly weak pool, should finish second.
Yeah, I've got it that way as well. Argentina to win the pool, with England going through in second place. But let's talk a little bit about Japan for a moment, Mike. 4 years ago, they were the darlings of the tournament. They were wonderful, really. They won Pool A, first time that they had ever won their pool, with first-time wins over Ireland and Scotland along the way. But they're not quite the same side this time round. What can we expect from them?
Well, that's a great question, because I'm a bit worried about them. They just seem to have fallen by the wayside a little bit. Obviously, they put a massive amount of effort into making sure they were more than competitive at their World Cup 4 years ago. But it seems like they really peaked there, and they just haven't been able to build on that. Their results have been quite disappointing in the build-up to this World Cup. I don't think they're a team that hopefully will surprise us. But looking at the evidence, I think the brave blossoms are also wilting a bit, unfortunately. Sorry, in that group, if I could just mention potential giant slayers there, Samoa. Like Fiji, they benefited nicely from the World Rugby eligibility change in rules. They've got some really good firepower in their backline, ex-All Black players. So they could well surprise England. I'll stay with England finishing second, but like Fiji and the other pool who could surprise Wales, I think Samoa could surprise England and possibly finish second.
It's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens there. And then just a quick word on Chile, the first time that they will be appearing at the World Cup. In fact, they are the only tournament debutants this time round. It's great for them and great for South American rugby, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great. I'll confess, I know almost nothing about them, so this will be an education for me to see how they play. Yeah, I really can't tell you too much. I think it'll be a learning experience for them, and hopefully it goes well. But I must say, my intelligence on them is not vast. So let's see what they produce.
Yeah, I must be honest, I don't know all that much about them either. I've watched one or two videos about them, and I get the sense that they're a team that likes to play enterprising rugby, so that should at least be quite entertaining and something to look forward to. All right, Mike, let's have a look at the predictions that we've made. We've got 7 out of 8 quarterfinalists the same. So we've both got France versus Ireland. We've both got South Africa versus New Zealand. You have got Argentina versus Wales. I've got Argentina, Fiji. And then we both have Australia versus England. Let's start with the host nation against the world #1 ranked side. For that quarterfinal, what's going to happen?
Yeah, I think France will win that. Like I say, there is all this expectation on them, and you can suffer a little bit when the whole country is expecting you to win. Maybe that pressure will come later in the tournament, possibly in a semi-final or final. In the quarterfinal, I think France will have too much. Again, you can't say with a great amount of certainty, but I will back France to win that one.
Now, the winner of that match, as per our predictions anyway, will play the winner of the Argentina quarterfinal. I've got Argentina versus Fiji. You've got them up against Wales. But I'm picking Argentina to win that quarterfinal. What's your pick?
Pumas. Pumas will win that one. I'm convinced of it.
And then on the other side of the draw, we've got Australia versus England in one of the quarterfinals. Both of us have made that prediction, Mike. I'm going to go with the Wallabies. What are you going with?
Yeah, Wallabies got my vote. Yeah, I think Eddie will get one over his old team.
Yeah, I think so too, to be honest. And just a quick word on Eddie. He is one of the world's foremost coaches, no doubt about it. And I personally think that given that he's going to have an opportunity to spend a few weeks with the team before this World Cup kicks off, just him and the team on the training ground, I think there is going to be a spike in performances and indeed results. What do you think?
Yeah, Eddie, he's cunning. He's good. He's experienced. I mean, he's been in 2 World Cup finals. He did change a lot at the Australians. He's brought in quite a lot of new younger players. I mean, leaving out Michael Hoop as a massive call, but he's clearly got a plan. Eddie, that's Eddie. He's the ultimate strategist. And yes, they've lost 5, but 5 matches before the World Cup doesn't really matter. As long as you're working towards a target, and he's clearly got something in mind. And like I said earlier, I do think this half of the draw favors teams that are slightly out of form, like Australia, because they should win their games and they can work on their game while they're doing it. And I do think Australia will win their quarterfinal, get to the semis. Yeah, I think they are a team that will play a lot better than they have been playing so far.
And then the blockbuster quarterfinal, as you and I have it, Mike, South Africa versus New Zealand. A couple of weeks ago at Twickenham, it was 35-7, but I have a feeling it'll be a little bit closer on this occasion.
I watched that game and I thought I was hallucinating at times. I was thinking, jeepers, okay, we've started really well, but okay, they're going to get back into the game now. They're going to have a breakaway try. As they always do. Mo'unga's going to put a little chip over and the wing's going to gather and run 50 meters and here we go. But it never happened. I mean, in 70 minutes, I'm still watching, thinking, I can't believe what I've just seen. And we should have actually put 50 past them. The Springboks left another 8 tries out there, and I know they've been working very carefully on, varying their point of attack in the 22. Because they got over the line, I think 4 or 5 times they were held up. So they just got to work on a few little nuances just to maybe just vary how they attack in the 22. So I think obviously we're not going to see another 35-point win. I don't imagine so. But I think the ingredients that gave us that win are the same ingredients that will give us another win in this game. And I think it's, that forward pack of ours, that relentless, merciless pressure up front that just it suffocates like a python wrapped around its prey. And with that bench, I think the Boks will win it.
I'm going to go with that as well. So you and I had 7 of the same quarterfinalists, just differing on Fiji and Wales. But we do have 4 out of 4 in terms of the semi-finalists, Mike. And the first one, France versus Argentina. Now, we all know what happened in 2007. How much different will it be in 2023?
No, I think France will win their semi-final quite comfortably. I think Argentina, I think that's pretty much their limit. They're a good World Cup team. They'll get as far as the semi-finals, but they're not good enough to make the final. I think France will win that with a fair amount of ease. The other semi-final, it is South Africa and, let me just check my notes, South Africa versus Australia. Sorry. We're too strong for Australia. I cannot see them surprising the Springboks. They just haven't got the forward power to cancel us out there. I think we'll win that with relative ease.
So no repeat of 2011 then, right?
Okay, I get where you're coming from now. No, there's no chance, and I'm sure the officiating will be fairer this time.
That is the kind of talk I like to hear. Let's move on to the final then, Mike. You and I have both got the same prediction. It'll be the host nation against the defending champions. A dream final, I think, for the organisers. But there are a couple of things at play. France have been to the Rugby World Cup final 3 times and have lost on each occasion. The Springboks, as we know, have been to the Rugby World Cup 3 times and have won each of those. Does history repeat itself, or do the French finally get their hands on the Webb Ellis Cup?
I don't think so. This is when the pressure will get to them. The Springbok team is just so good at playing these big games. I mean, the Springboks did it in 2019 with 80% of the team that they've got now played in that 2019 final. And if they manage to win that game by playing really clever, calculated rugby and just arm wrestled England out of the game, 4 years later, those players have got a vast amount more experience of playing big games. Insir Khaleesi, what a leader! How has he grown over the last 4 years? France obviously are a great team, but I think South Africa are a finals team. They step up for the big occasions, and they've got such a settled team, composed team, playing good rugby. We've now got, strike runners out wide. Our game has evolved substantially from 2019. I mean, we played the territory game. The forwards, the mauling game. That was pretty much our chief weapon. Yes, we did have a couple of nice counter-attack ties, but I think we're far better now. We've got a few more arrows in the quiver now. I think our forwards are even better, and now we've got some serious strike power out wide. I think the Springboks will win it. In fact, I'm sure of it.
I am in agreement, Mike. I also think that the Springboks will ultimately overcome France, and by doing so, more importantly, I think, move to become the outright leaders in terms of Webb Ellis Cups won, going ahead of New Zealand with 4.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said at the beginning of the show, wouldn't it be poetic justice? I mean, France stole the World Cup from South Africa in the boardroom with some suspicious manoeuvring. And then we come to their back garden and win the final in Paris. That would be wonderful.
It would be wonderful indeed. Mike, just before I let you go, tell us a little bit more about your new book, The Fireside Springbok.
Yeah, it's the Fireside Springbok. If I can maybe show you the cover here. How does that look? Can you see that? Yeah, so this was a book that was born in lockdown. I think many a book idea had its roots in COVID-19 lockdown. And I just thought at that point, I'd done 25 years of covering the Springboks. And I thought, well, time to put down, just some of the stories that I remembered as being really nice, the great characters that I've had the fortune to interview, and I just put together a really cool collection of interesting stories about interesting Springboks and Springbok events, and that's hopefully it'll be a popular read.
Well, I can say from personal experience that if it is half as good as Captain in the Cauldron, it will be an excellent read. Mike, on that note, let me say it was lovely having you on Front Row Rugby today, an absolute pleasure, and I hope that we can have you on again in the future.
Oh, it'd be a pleasure. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you so much for watching. Maybe you agree or strongly disagree with the predictions that we've made in this video. Let me know in the comments section how you see the Rugby World Cup 2023 playing out. In the meantime, I've put together a series of Rugby World Cup related content. Some of those videos are appearing on your screen right now, and I'll see you next time.